Hey, folks. Just realized my camera's upside down. Let me fix that. Nah, nah. That's better. I don't know why that was upside down. Anyway. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to copy some credits, too. That's important. And we'll get into it. Here we go. Here we go. Let's paste that. There we go, picture credit. Got to credit those pictures taken by the Hubble and stuff like that. Make sure the credit given is due, you know, all that good stuff. I figured what I would do today, you know, I got other hobbies besides gaming, right? And I got to fit them all in, right? And I thought maybe some people would want to see this or see a video of it or whatever. I have a telescope. Maybe you've seen it in the background a couple of my streams. Sometimes it's in here. It's upstairs right now. I took that out last night. Finally, after it's been almost a year, not quite. Captured some beautiful pictures of Jupiter. At least I think beautiful. It was really nice last night. Pretty clear night. As good as I can get with my telescope, which is a 90 millimeter refractor from Meade, back from I think about 2000. Right, I've had this thing since I was a kid and didn't take great care of it when I was a kid because I was a kid and dumb, you know, the way things are. But it fits with that whole motif of stuff that I picked up when I was a child, right? Anyway, before work here today, I thought I would just, I don't know, maybe take about a half hour here and stack some of the images from the camera captures that I took last night. I have a camera, they put it in the telescope, and some software on my computer that I can just, you know, essentially record, you know, anywhere from 100 to 300 frames a second on this thing, and maybe even higher than that, depending upon the resolution. And the idea is, if you've never heard of this before, is that you take those, you know, 100, 300, whatever frames a second of video, you take maybe about 10,000 to 20,000 frames of the object, like your planet or your star or whatever you're trying to look at. And backing up for a second here, if you were to just take one single picture of Jupiter, for instance, it's not going to look like that, right? It's not going to look like the Hubble. It's not going to be crisp and clean and clear, right? And the reason for that is, one, your telescope sucks, right? Unless you have a really good one, unless you're really rich. My telescope is okay. It's not great. It's not terrible, but it's not great. It's 3.6 Roentgens. But in addition to that, we have the atmosphere around the Earth, right? So if you haven't really looked into that before, you know, like think of air, like, you know, if you look through water, you know, stuff starts getting a little wavy, right? A little blurry as you look through water. Well, same thing happens with air, right? It's just air is dispersed out. But when you got this much air to look through, right, it's going to cloud your vision a little bit, make things out of focus, and you can't correct for it necessarily, at least not easily. And then in addition to that, hot air, if you ever seen that before, kind of creates that little mirage effect whenever you see it. So hot air rising over a city in the distance, it's going to start putting wavy lines in the atmosphere. And yeah, you know, the more of that atmosphere you got to look through, the worse the picture gets. But we got, to counteract that, is what I was talking about before. You hook a camera up, you capture 100 frames a second, 200 frames a second, whatever, capture a lot of frames, right? And you do something called lucky imaging. You put it through some software, and the software says, okay, let me pick out the best pictures of each of these, right? So if you have 10,000 frames to work with, chances are you got maybe like 1,000 in there where the picture doesn't suck so much, you know, from the ripply, wavy atmospheric effects and stuff like that. You stack them all together, and maybe you get a nice detailed picture that you wouldn't have otherwise seen from just the one photo you could have taken, right? So anyway, that's what I'm going to go through today. All right. I captured many frames of Jupiter last night. I'm going to run them through some software here. And I'm going to do some post-processing, so a little artwork, you know, if you will. And we're going to see how clear this image is going to be. This is the first time I've used this particular camera with my scope. I used this camera last year to take pictures of Mars using a telescope I borrowed from an astronomy club, which is really nice. It was a better, way better scope than I had. Did not get around to getting Jupiter. It just was too late in the season. It got to be winter and it was super cold out there. And Jupiter just wasn't in the right spot, right? So, yeah. Let's get into this here. Software that I use, if you're kind of curious about doing this for yourself, is called Autostakkert. Oops, I don't want to drag that. I have to lock all those things in place there. I was dragging on OBS. I wasn't dragging on my actual desktop. Here it is, Autostakkert 3. And you can get that by Googling Autostakkert, right? Free software, open source. All right. Hasn't been updated since 2018. I don't know if anything new has been released or if someone's worked on a new open source project that might be better. I know I've seen some people starting off on those things last year. Haven't really followed up on it, but I'm going to kind of go with what I know right now. And we'll see how much I can remember from all the tricks I learned from post-processing last year. Because I've only been doing this post-processing camera stuff. I've only had a camera capable of doing this for since last year. So we'll see if I can remember any of those tips and tricks from last year and try to pull out the best image possible. We'll see how it goes, right? So that's where you get that. Another software that I use as well after stacking the images is something called RegiStax, which lets you do wavelet processing. Essentially, it lets you kind of tease out specific details from the stacked picture, sharpen certain things, denoise a little bit, and do some extra post-processing. At a certain point, you'd find that maybe like you're bringing out details that aren't actually there. But you're doing it anyway, right? I kind of wonder here if, yeah, so RegiStax, let me look at RegiStax 6. So you Google that. RegiStax 6, again, free software, right? RegiStax 6, been around a long time, since 2011, right? In fact, you can actually stack images with this program too, but it's so old that I'd rather go with the Autostakkert. Has a lot better performance and ability than I think RegiStax 6 has. RegiStax 6, I think, is still good for like if you did like lunar photography or something like that. But that's not what I did, right? I took pictures of Jupiter. So, I kind of wonder here for a second if I can actually find some of the pictures I did of Mars last year. Let me see if I can dig those up. Because those are pretty neat looking too, just to kind of give you a feel for or what that looks like, and kind of the quality we can achieve right from these consumer grade telescopes, and not necessarily ones that you know costing like $10,000 or something like that. These are ones that might cost you anywhere from like $500 down to maybe even like $250, $300. But then you gotta obviously invest in the camera and all that stuff, right? See if I can find them here, and then I'll put you back on my computer. Let's see. Well, do I have them? I probably should have looked these up beforehand, right? That would have been a lot better, right? Then you wouldn't have had to sit here and be like, well, geez, man, this is kind of boring, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know where those went. I know where I can look them up. Hold up. Let's go to my gallery. Ooh. Okay. No, I don't see him. Well, anyway, maybe I'll find it next time. Don't worry about it. I'll show you how good this is going to get when I'll show you how good this is going to get when we do Jupiter today. Okay, we'll see how good it gets. I think it'll be good. I have a good feeling about this. Okay, so let me open up some of the stuff here. So I have a few captures here from last night. I use Fire Capture. It's actually mentioned here, Fire Capture. Also open source, free stuff to use. To do this is to capture all of the images, if you will, set the exposure of the camera and all that stuff. A lot of good features in there. My telescope is old as dirt, so unfortunately it's not able to do some nice fancy stuff like auto guide the scope using the camera. It's not able to communicate with the drive on my telescope super well. So I kind of had to sit there with the hand controller and try to like make sure it stayed in the picture here and there. Because even my scope itself is not really great at guiding itself. You gotta spend some good money to get a setup where it'll actually like stay where you want it to. And but not important for planetary photography. That's more if you like wanted to get into like doing nebula and stuff like that, or galaxies, deep sky photos. Those are the ones where you'd want like a fantastic like polar mount for your scope, that follows where the stars go and has like pristine motors that don't vibrate and all that weird stuff. All right. And then you start getting into really expensive gear and I don't have money for that. Right. Like it's not, if I had no kids, we'd have dual income. I could definitely afford that. not something I can do for with kids. All right. I got to make sure I send them to college. Right. I want them to be able to do that stuff. So anyway, let's see, maybe I'll pick this bigger one here. And it even shows you the information here. So it shows you the camera that I used. In fact, I kind of made sure up there that I showed you some of the specs, the basic specs of what I was doing. And there we go. Pulled a bunch of information off. And we have, how many frames are in here? We got 7,000 frames. Okay. Do we have one with more? Okay, about 7,000 frames. Okay, so unfortunately some of them got dropped. Okay, and this is, okay, maybe not this one because I'm looking for one where I've dialed down the resolution to get the most amount of frames possible. So maybe this one. This one's got 10,000 frames and 640 by 480. So let's see what that one looks like. I think these other ones I tried to do to see if I could capture some of the moons, which they were out last night. You could see 5 of them. I'm not well versed enough to be able to tell you which ones were which. I'd have to look that up, and I mean, there's no way I would know, right? Sorry. So, yeah. Nice morning coffee. La Colombe. Yeah, delicious. Sponsor me. Anyway. So let's try this one here. All right, so here you can see already that it loads in all my frames up here. Check that out. I mean, that's not too bad. I mean, from what I'm seeing here, as long as you keep it small, I'm not seeing like a ton of detail, but this is not bad for a 90mm scope, given the optics that I'm working with, essentially, right? And it's not great glass that I got. All right, I'm just gonna cinch this down here. We don't need 640 by 480. I just wanted to make sure I had a big enough area that I could keep Jupiter in frame without it drifting away, which, by the way, super hard. And if you're not like dead on with your finder scope with this kind of thing, you are going to have a hard time getting the object you want to see on the computer screen. It's a nice little dance. It takes a lot of work at first, and then once you kind of get used to how it behaves, it gets a little easier. But boy, I spent a lot of time last night trying to figure that out. And then I got a couple you know, trees in my neighbor's backyard. One really tall pine tree. And Jupiter just went right behind the peak of the pine tree. When I was getting things dialed in, I was so mad. I had to wait probably about another half hour before it came across the tree and I could start capturing again. God, I want to cut that damn tree down. Anyway, so next what we do here, and there's tutorials on this stuff online. I'm not gonna give you a whole advanced tutorial, but I have to get alignment points here, and alignment points allow software to go through and number crunch all 10,000 of these photos and see where it can pick out the same detail. And look, as I kind of go through this, you can kind of see how it gets a little wavy, right? The details kind of get a little waviness in front of them. That is the atmosphere we're talking about, or vibrations from the earth and cars and stuff like that. If you get really good telescopes, yeah, if you have a highway nearby, man, you're gonna get vibrations, and you're you know, you won't see it until you look through the eyepiece or you see it on the camera. I don't have to worry about that as much with this. My impact is mostly atmospheric at this point. Where I'm shooting south, the southern sky has a city, you know, in between. So definitely a lot of hot air coming off the city, believe it or not. It's really interesting stuff. All right, so I got this. I'm going to set the box size to, I don't know, maybe we'll do, see what that does. Well, maybe I could do 24. Just makes the box size bigger. I did 48. Let's do that. All right, let's see how it goes. And then what we want to do is, let's see, how much noise do we got? I don't have very noisy data. I think it's fine. Let's do a 4. This is all just kind of guesswork on my part. I don't really know what I would rate this at as far as noise goes. And then I'm going to do a double stack to improve the performance. Let's analyze. Now it's doing number crunching, and this can use all 24 threads that I have. There we go. And then I get a little quality graph there. The quality graph kind of tells me, okay, you got some good picture quality. You know, it shows me how good the pictures are overall. And so it looks like about 50% of the pictures are above this 50% quality level, right? How it kind of rates what we got here. Because I got so many frames, maybe I'll stick with about the 25% mark here, right? So I'm going to say, hey, I want 25% of those frames to come out. And that's going to leave me at about a quality level of about 68%. Maybe I'll do a quality level of 75%, and that looks like it's the top 10% of photos, roughly, based on this. There's just some information up here that tells me, okay, where I'm at, and it shows me in order of quality the pictures. So I could probably go down to like 75% or 70%, and that's going to use about 1,200 frames from the 10,000 that I took, right? So let's do the top 10%. Maybe I'll sharpen it just a little bit. RGB align. These are the settings you can kind of mess around with and find out. I don't remember if I want to be doing normalizing more than this. I really can't remember. All right. Now, I've also told it to open this in RegiStax afterwards so that I can mess around with it. Okay, RegiStax open. Good. All right, so now it's crunching through. It's doing its map analysis, all that good stuff. And then here it is. All right. So already, I mean, without me even touching it, let me zoom that a little bit here. You're not going to get huge photos, right, doing this, but it's all right. You don't need it. Let's view zoomed. So here's a nice zoomed view of it. And it's a little blurry, right? Like I took a Gaussian filter over it or something like that. in Photoshop. Did a motion blur or something. But look at that compared to already, compared to what we had earlier in RegiStax with, if I can get rid of these. And maybe I can have it show in color here. Maybe I can't have it show in color. But anyway, look at that detail compared to it, right? It's a lot crisper, smoother, and I think we can tease some decent details out of this. So next what I'm going to do is adjust what they call these wavelets over here. And I can actually preview what each wavelet does. You can see up in that top left corner. If I start sharpening this, it shows you kind of what bands it's going to sharpen. And it kind of gets more and more muddy as you go down to the point where I'm probably not even going to use wavelets 5 and 6, right? I'm going to have them there just to kind of brighten things up. And then we just kind of start playing with these sliders here. If there's a rhyme or a reason, I'll be honest, I don't really know. All right. You just want to make sure you're not getting so sharp that you're getting a ton of noise in there. And you want to make sure you're not denoising so much that you're just kind of muddying up the water. Oh, beautiful. Look at that. All right. I don't want to over sharpen too much here. Denoise a little bit. That is beautiful. Look at that. Look at the detail on that. I wish I had been able to do Jupiter with the 8-inch SCT that I had last year that I was borrowing from the club. Let's see what happens here. Okay, kind of improve the contrast there a little bit on the bands. It needs to probably be color correct a little bit. It's a little on the yellow side. I could have done that in my capture software, but I just didn't have the time last night to worry about it. It even happens when you kind of muddy it up a little bit when you're denoising. So you want to try and be a little careful with that. There we go. I can brighten up. Again, I can kind of select here to see what it's going to improve on here. Maybe I don't want to kill it that much. Not bad. Not bad at all. Bring down the sharpening on this. Yeah, see in here, it doesn't really have much in it, so it just kind of brightens in a muddy fashion, that entire picture. But you still want it to kind of get the yellow out of this, right? Again, just playing with this. It's almost like Bob Ross in it, right? Just happy little bands out here. You kind of know what Jupiter ought to look like, right? So that's better than I was expecting, actually. I mean, I can do some stuff here too. I don't know if I don't think I see the red spot on here. I guess if I had to compare it, I think this is, if I remember my scope correctly, I think this is actually upside down and tilted, so I could actually like flip and rotate it. Yeah, that's it. And I think the red spot ought to be right about here. So not getting that detail so much. But that's pretty cool. I like that. And there we go. And this is the finished product here that you see. Of course, I'm sure that's, some people look at it and are like, that's it. That's all you got. A little tiny little 128 by 128. Yeah, that's what you're going to get with your, $200, $250, maybe even $300 refractor that you get out of the Discovery Channel store. That's what I did. The Discovery Channel store, the Mall of America. We're visiting. But hey, that's to me, that's not bad for what we get, especially considering all of the atmospheric distortion stuff that we got to combat. So that's pretty cool. I like that. I'm gonna save that one. Let's save that image. Well, actually, I can color correct a little bit here. No, I don't need a line. I need a RGB balance, I think it is. Or is it the gamma I gotta adjust? Sometimes you can get some really neat effects adjusting the gamma curve and this, I do this in photography all the time, where you try to bring out certain areas more than others, and you try to reduce certain areas. Kind of doing like a big popular one in photography is you kind of do this S-curve, if you will, like this. Kind of boost the contrast on the light end and the dark end. Like brings those out. Not gonna do that with this one. This isn't quite like the photography that I would do. Another one I've seen too is like if you're a wedding photographer, sometimes you'll see this on wedding photography. You'll take the blacks out of it a little bit and make them a little gray. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen that before, where it's like, oh, there's blacks in there, but they're not like, you know, hex 0000, you know, black. They are a little gray to them, you know, kind of mats them a little bit, makes it look like it's on non-glossy paper, if you will. So that's another trick you can do with the S-curve here, is you just kind of drag up the black here so you don't see the black. It makes it kind of a gray matte out. Same thing with whites. I've seen them do that too, where they'll take the whites out of it a little bit. Anyway, this isn't wedding photography. This is, come on, reset. Let's just reset it. Okay. This is just astrophotography, and we just kind of have to do what we can do to tease out the quality that we want here. Suppressing certain colors we're not interested in, suppressing certain levels we're not interested in, that sort of thing. That makes it look a little bit better if I'm taking a little bit of that black out of there. Behind, almost like it's taken the darkness out of the back area of that planetary disk. Almost like if you could see through the planet, you know, if it's like imagine someone dialed back the opacity, right? I like using that, this area down here to try and gray that out a little bit so that your planetary disk is a little, I don't know, pops more from the black background, if you will. And I mean, look again, look at how much that's improved from what we had before, that kind of yellow mess. In fact, I kind of remember this here. Let me just reset it just to show you what we did here. Look at that. It's kind of a little, I don't know, a little too much contrast, a little too yellow, a little too red. And we're dialing back some of the whites and dialing up some of the grays, right? And now we can see more of these details down here. You know, almost like this little, if you look really closely, almost that bluish gray color towards the bottom of the planet, and the top of the planet. And we just get a more wide array of the colors that we see here. And it's not as, how do I want to say this? Like if someone took the color and cranked up the colors all the way, you know, it's a lot more muted, which I really like. What the heck is the word for that? I use all the time. Well, I'll find it. Don't worry about it. Saturation. That's the word. Saturation. It's not as saturated. I just realized I'm not even showing the gamma panel on the screen. It's on my other screen here. Here's the gamma panel, guys. I'm sorry. So here's what I'm talking about. I almost did like a reverse S-curve here with this. Some of the stuff I was talking about earlier, without you being able to see it, was the forward S-curve is one that a lot of people do for just their photography on a daily basis. It's a very simple thing you can do to try and add some contrast and vibrance to your photos. And then I was also talking about how I've seen some wedding photographers take the blacks and like kind of get rid of them. And you'll notice the black background here on Jupiter is getting more and more, you know, Etsy looking, you know, or Pinterest looking, if you will. And that all like is something you'll see people do in like, you know, those really fancy like wedding photos and stuff that you'd almost want to see it, like I said, on like matte paper instead of glossy photo paper. It's, you know, it kind of adds some, I don't know, old school charm to it, if you will. gives you that that visco look. I don't know. You know, it's it makes it feel more maybe even more formal. I don't know how to describe it other than just how it just changes the feel of the picture so much when you do something like that. But like I said, you know, you take away some of the whites too, um, dial them down a little bit, and yeah, it just kind of desaturates the picture in a way that's hard to describe, but it really changes that feel. Doesn't look great on Jupiter though. That's what I was trying to say. So I reset that, and what I did was instead was I put my points up here, and I actually kind of did the reverse S. Is what I ended up doing here to try and mute a little bit some of those colors that are a little too intense, and tried to bring out the poles of Jupiter a little bit. Oops. And better define that planetary disk. And there are people that are like going to be way, way better than me at this. Kudos to those people that know what they're doing. I don't. I do it based on feeling. I use the force. Okay. And I just try to make it look like the way I want it to look. All right. At a certain point, like I said, we're Bob Rossing it. We're making a happy little Jupiter up there. And at the end of the day, it's what I want the picture to look like, what I expect Jupiter to look like. You know, I got Hubble images. If you know, there's a Hubble image in this introduction here. If I really want to get into how Jupiter should look, you know, if I want to see 1-to-1 what it ought to look like, but this is my art, okay. That's the beauty of it. I can make it blue if I wanted to. I'm not gonna, because that's not how I want Jupiter to look. So that was gamma. Then there's color mixing. So it looks maybe a little too on the orange side. So maybe I'll try and do the hue a little bit. See what that. Oh, nope, that's not right. Nope. Nope. Maybe I could do a little less on the red. Not really doing anything, is it? If I did that. No, none of this. Okay. Reset. No, that's not resetting very well, is it? It's weird when you try to reset that and it's not doing what you want it to do. Well, anyway, I think that is about as good as I'm going to get out of it. It's weird that I can remove that, but I can't I'm not impacting this at all. And these numbers just keep changing. So I'm just going to let it go. And let's do that. And then let's see, histogram. Mess around with a histogram if I want. All right, try to get things centered, if you will. That's something that's popular in photography too, where you try to get all the, you look at a combination of the RGB, in one, and then you try to get, to where you have, a good peak of whites up to your other colors that are kind of in the gray area, down to your blacks, and you try not to get everything cut off, right? So here, you can maybe see that I have a bunch of black, but that's okay. We're going to have black because it's space, all right? There's allowed to be black in the background. We're allowed to have that key. So here I can try to bring out some of the contrast by trying to keep in mind that, yeah, there's supposed to be some black here, but we can shift it more towards the lighter side here. That actually is looking pretty neat doing that. That's compared to what it was before. So yeah, I think I like that. Beautiful. Let's leave it at that. I don't want to get too much of this. Sometimes okay, somehow my gamma got reset. That's part of probably what happened when I messed with the histogram. Let's try to get that back in there. Let's see if I can get it back to where I want it. Yeah. Okay. I think that's good. Let's keep it. Save image. Sometimes I'll even come back to these, a week later and just see if I can get something better out of it, But let's go with that for now. And I don't know where I want to save this. Where am I saving this? Oh, okay. It's in my fire capture folder. That's good. Save that. And let's reset everything here. I'm going to just close out a RegiStax. This is the easiest way for me to just reset everything back to default. Otherwise, it applies all that settings to the next stack that I do. So that was what we call the prime prime picture from my scope. All right, I put the camera directly into the scope, no eyepieces, nothing like that. So it was, I don't remember how much the magnification is. There's some math behind it, but it was just whatever the prime length of my telescope was doing that. And that was pretty good for prime. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. Another thing I like doing too in Photoshop is, at least with Jupiter, is see if I have any shots with the moons here. And I think that's going to be this one here. All right. And let's zoom out. So here you can see the, moons. Looks like I captured 4 of them. I thought there was another one in there, but apparently I missed it. The only thing is when you try to get the exposure for the moons, then you overexpose Jupiter. And so what's nice is when you stack in the nice image of Jupiter there, you go into Photoshop, you take an image like this where you have the nice bright stars, and you just put your nice stacked image of Jupiter over here, right? That's how you get the moons with Jupiter, at least as far as I'm concerned. I'm not going to stack this. It's just a couple white dots, right? But gives you an idea. What is in this? Wow, okay, so I did have like a nice, huge 14 gig thing. The thing is, now you're seeing me, I have a bunch of wasted space on my hard drive. There's only 7,000 frames here, right? 7,700 frames. And I mean, for 14 gigs, that was worse. I was working with 10,000 frames for the other one. That said, I'm still going to try and see if there's some detail here. Maybe I did a better job focusing on this one. But that just gives you a clue of like, okay, yeah, I can capture, whatever that size was, right? Ridiculous area, right? I think it was like 13 something by 960. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was, but look at all this wasted black here. There's nothing here, all right? The moons are here, but I'm not capturing the moons because I don't have the exposure set for them, right? So that's why, you saw that in the other ones where I had, like I was looking for one with a 640 by 480 area of interest because I only needed to capture Jupiter. And when you have the full resolution of your camera set like that, you're going to see a little tiny Jupiter in the middle of all this black, and it's nice for finding the planet, but you end up wasting a lot of space on your hard drive. And then also, in addition to that, your camera at a certain point, won't capture as many frames per second as you want. You want as many frames per second as you can possibly get, all right? The lower the exposure you can set, the more frames you're going to get, right? Just physically. But then also processing power, the higher resolution you're using, meaning you're going to get a larger field of view, right? So the less you crop that, the less frame rate you're going to get too. So you want to try and work with the smallest frame you can, while also maximizing the frame rate you're going to get that's limited by the exposure. And at a certain point, it's like, okay, well, the exposure is only going to let me have a cap of this frame rate just because it can't capture any faster than that, because that's the exposure, right? It's physically limited by the exposure. So at that point, let me just pick a resolution that still is able to send data to my computer that fast, right? And not make it harder on myself to keep the planet in the frame. So that's why I'm not using like 128 by 128, right? 640 by 480. I'm able to keep the planet in frame easily. It's more space than I need to work with, but I'm not taking a hit to the frame rate as a result. A lot of information here, isn't there? All right, let's do this. Let's analyze. And I think I only have time for this last one here. Maybe have one more. We'll see. Oh, you know what? Cancel. I forgot to add my APs. There we go. There we go. Now it's crunching through, and it's making my computer work a lot harder now. And you can see here that the quality, it says, is not nearly as good for a lot of these. So, you know what? I'm not even going to work with that one. All right. Here. Maybe we get something better out of this one here. Let's see what we got. No, it's too much. That one came out a little too bright. That's okay. Yeah, too bright. Let's go with this last one here then. And I think this one, yep, this one was where I added a 2x Barlow, so it actually doubled the size of the planetary disk, but may not necessarily result in better quality. There is a trade-off there. All right. And even at a certain point too, it's like there's no amount of focusing you can do to increase the quality of that picture, just because you're over stressing the optics of your telescope. It's the simplest way I can explain that. Let's dial this back here. We want maybe like 256, I think. Doubling this. More than that. Let's do. Why not? Go with that. All right, clear. And let's see. All right, let's go place AP grid. Let's go with 64. 104. Yeah, let's go with that. See what happens. Analyze. Crunch those numbers. And we got quality all over the place. Why don't we take the top? Let's take the top 20% this time. All right, let's see what it does in RegiStax. So this one, you can see it's a little more washed out and blurry. And again, I think that's just more or less a product of, you know, stressing out my optics a little too much. Like I think a 1.5 Barlow would have been okay, but the 2x Barlow is maybe a little more than I can sustain with my current telescope and get, like, you know, some detailed pictures out of it. But we'll see what we can do here. See, that's just kind of noisy. You know, we didn't get the nice improvements that we saw with the last picture. You know, maybe some of the bands can be improved here, but it's going to be a little bit noisy here. All right. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to tease out much detail from this one. But sometimes I've been surprised by what you can get. Okay, so we're pulling out some bands. Not nearly as neat looking as we had before. Oh, okay, okay. Let's denoise a little bit, though. And I start getting a little blurry. I mean, this could have also been just me not getting my focus dialed in as well as it could have been. But like I said, at a certain point, you know, you can only magnify something so much in your scope before you just kind of hit the limits of the glass. All right. And you just can't focus it. Right. It's the reason why, I mean, it's kind of a similar reason as to why when you take a microscope, you know, there's only certain things that we can see with it. We can't, you know, we can't infinitely magnify something. There's just not the light there. And at a certain point, then also you run out of the ability to see the wavelengths. You can't reflect light off of something a certain size because the wave of the light that you're using is larger than the object, right? Not quite the case here, but there is a limit to the optics. You know, you can't just keep blowing up the picture, blowing up the picture, blowing up the picture. It just muddies it out, makes it blurry, and you can't focus it, right? Like say it's, you're overstressing your optics at that point, and I think that's kind of what's happening here. But I'm still surprised by like some of the bands that we're getting here, some of the detail that I'm seeing. I'll dial back this one right here. Let me dial this one down a little bit too. It's not so bad. And then yeah, bring up some of these ones here. And if I remember correctly, we had to flip and rotate this, or just flip it, and then we need to do some gamma here. Yeah, it's just not gonna come out as good as the other one, that's for sure. The other one I was pretty happy with. This one I'm kind of like, meh. It's a little blurry to me, you know. Didn't quite line up right. But that's okay. You know, we'll try this again sometime. I only had maybe 5 minutes to get this 2x Barlow in before it actually went down below the next tree line. So I might try again another night and see if I can get maybe a more crisp image here, one that has better quality shots, get my Batinoff mask on the telescope to make sure I'm really dialed in with that focus as sharp as it can possibly be. This was really hard to keep in frame too. When you 2x it like that, and it you know, if your scope is having a hard time tracking, then you're having a hard time keeping it in frame, which I had. So, but more detail than I thought I would get out of this. So it's interesting. Anyway, I think that's where I'm going to leave it for today. I might do another one of these at some point. I don't know when, but you know, it's just another one of my hobbies, right? In addition to the gaming. And I thought it'd be nice to do that, you know, because I didn't spend any time last night streaming. I spent some time capturing photos of Jupiter. So just give you an idea of what I was doing instead of playing Force Commander or something else. So there we go. You know, if you've never really done astrophotography before, maybe you got a telescope sitting in your closet that you're kind of like, well, I saw Jupiter, or I saw Saturn, whatever, it's fine. Maybe now I've given you something else that you can look into, something you can drop more money on, and see if you can capture some neat looking pictures, right? Software's free, at least. The camera's not, obviously, but allows you to play around, right? Maybe I've given you some new inspiration there, showing you the kind of stuff you can get, you know, with your consumer grade telescope, and then, you know, show out to friends and stuff like that. And again, it's art, right? All right. It's nice to come here and sit down and relax, mess around with the planet Jupiter, see if I can make it look nice. You know, I'm never going to get this Hubble stuff here, right? Launch my telescope into space. But it's neat to see what I can get, all right? And tweak it and play with it. So anyway, thanks for joining me today. Again, hope I introduced you to something new if you hadn't seen it before, and maybe provide you with some inspiration of your own, pointed you in a new direction. As always, hope you guys are feeling happy right now, staying healthy, enjoying what you do. All right. Appreciate you joining me. Have a good one.